It's that timeless pursuit of when art merges with the artist, where we put ourselves out there, find that moment of motivation, and ride the momentum, and then love the very art we create. These are all deeply linked to the soul of who we are. Some say you might be able to measure that, but perhaps it is a blind pursuit. Hello, everybody. Welcome to 21 Grams. I'm your host, Joe Compton. So awesome to have you here today because I have an awesome guest, and I can't wait for you all to. I can't wait to have a conversation with the man. I mean, he's just one of my favorite people on this planet, and so it's really cool to have him here. Rob, well, what I always love people to do to start the show is tell everybody, give a little intro about yourself, tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, my name is Rob Gilmore, but I write under the pen name Rob Grimoire. I have been writing for about 2.5 years. I'm published in a couple of places that I will be dropping links for later. If you'd be interested in Mocha Memoirs Press, A Crack in the Code. I have a poem there. I have I have 2 stories, one in Dark Spores from Chrome Groves Press, and another in MV Media. It's called Space Funk. It just came out as well. I am a nurse by trade, if everyone wants to know that. And I really, 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 really am creating an obsession within my brain for writing. It's been a journey, and I'm enjoying it.
That's awesome. I love that idea because you get to a point where it feels like a job sometimes, and then the love and the passion for it is what carries you over, or you have to find that again in a lot of respects, and because it can get grinding, right? It can be a real
Right.
grind sometimes.
It can be. I found that it's okay when I don't feel like it to just not do it. Um, and whenever I'm out and about and I'm thinking about writing, I'm writing, and not being too hard on myself, because you can get into a space where it'll pull you down if you feel like you're not doing enough. When I don't think there's such thing as enough, unless you have a goal that you're trying to meet. You're always writing. You're always coming up with ideas. You're always coming up. Your brain's exploding with these things. That's what it means to be a creative in general. You're coming up with these ideas, and these things are popping in your head. If they don't get the page right, then that's okay. For me, personally, that's okay at the time. But sure, I feel sad sometimes when I can't get it out, especially when it's in my brain and I'm right there in front of the page or right there in front of my laptop, and I just can't get it out the way I want to get it out.
I can relate to that for sure. Uh, you have an interesting history too, because you started you started creatively in music, and that was one of your loves. And I'm curious, do you look back at that time, or do you think about where you excuse me, where you are right now? Uh, Maybe going back to it at some point, or is it just kind of the thing that you dabble with from here or there, or you? I mean, I know you're right now. You're fully entrenched in the writing aspect of things, but at some point, do you go? You know what? I miss it a lot, and I think music is always going to be a part of my life.
Music will always be a part of my life. And I was just talking to my wife the other day, and I was like, I got to go do karaoke or something like that because I'm getting itched to sing again. And I can't invest the time in getting with a band full time because I have other things, that I think are on the creative scale have shifted. I went from singing and writing and having fun doing that, and I have that big shift. So it'll be hard to go back to that. You know what I mean? But with that said, I will always be a musician. I'll always love singing. And so if the time came and I had the time to do something, I would definitely do it. 100%. because I'm still writing either way. And I think the one thing fuels the other. If it wasn't for being in a band, I don't think I would be able to have the kind of creation process that I have now that has evolved over time to, mutate into something that I could use for writing. Even just the process of getting critique as a musician is different. But it allows you to be in a headspace where you can accept critique and try to improve on it. A guitarist here, they're doing something that's weird, they're gonna change it up, and once they get to where they want to be, it'll kind of fix itself from there.
Are you surprised about how much the writing overlaps, like the process in itself overlaps, or does it at all for you? Or do you feel like it's a whole different muscle that you're using when you're writing songs versus writing, anything else?
So writing songs, I think, prepared me mentally to be able to write short stories. And I hear people all the time say that they wish they would have learned how to write short stories before they went long form.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that's going to go for me because I'm just kind of new to everything. But it's using the same muscle. It's using a similar muscle because I'm a vocalist. I write lyrics.
Right.
So it's using a similar muscle. I would like to hear that same question asked to a guitarist who, is also an author or dabbles in like animation, like Brendan Small or something. Somebody else who kind of crossed that line, and they do both very good. I'd like to hear their take on that particular question. But for me, it is kind of flexing the same muscle because I'm still writing stories. But I found out that I couldn't when I was like, oh, this writing thing is really fun and I'm really enjoying it. Why am I enjoying it so much? It's because I've always been a writer.
Yeah.
I've always wrote something. I wrote a story. I write stories about in songs. My songs will have beginning, middle, and end, cause and effect, climax, and there's always a prestige in my song. So it's kind of flexing the same muscle. Yeah, I wasn't too surprised, but it catch me off guard.
It's funny too because here you are, you're writing short stories, you're getting that out there, you're working on other novel length stuff and things of that nature. You're also dabbling in the screenplay aspect of things. Something similar that the movie business has to the music industry is that there's this collaboration that goes on, and you were just talking about how you'd be interested to hear how a guitarist might answer that question. Similar to how I think maybe an actor might answer that question, or how a producer might answer that question. Is the screenwriting thing, was that kind of a filler for you in the time being to get that collaboration aspect? Because with writing short stories and stuff, there is a collaboration, but it's more towards the end of the process. The process itself is more solitary, so it's very interesting. When you're writing a screenplay, I mean, even writing a screenplay is solitary, but you are thinking about all the other aspects of what's going to go into that. And then when you get into actually making the movie, it becomes a real collaborative process, right? And so I'm curious, was that kind of a filler gap for you? Did you feel like I want to write screenplays because I'm missing that collaboration in my life?
Well, a really dear friend of mine kind of challenged me to write, to take one of my short stories and break down a scene into a screenplay, into a screenplay format. And I want to learn how to write screenplays because eventually one day I want to be in the space working where I can efficiently and effectively write in that particular format.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I have ideas for film, but I never knew what that really meant until I actually wrote a story. And then tried to figure out how to take that story and turn it into something that's visual because I write very visually. So my friend, who I also consider another mentor of mine, they really kind of put me through the grinder and was, saying, I needed to improve writing the screenplay, taking the short story scene and translating it into a screenplay showed me where I make mistakes in both different, in both prose styles. It showed me how I make mistakes. with tense, how I make mistakes in trying to visualize something from a particular point of view when I shouldn't be doing that. I should be focusing on one particular point of view, and how that doesn't work in screenplays. Being very visual doesn't work. We're talking about interior building. You're telling me, and then I need to be able to write chunks of dialogue that mean something to the interior of the building and everything else that's happening. I have to bring the person in because an actor has to translate that.
Yeah.
Not for me to do. That's the collaboration, right? The
Right.
actor has to translate what you're saying there, but you have to write it well enough for the actor to kind of say, okay, I see where you're going there. I have some direction. And the director has to direct that.
Yeah.
And then the everyone in photography has to kind of see what's going on in set direction and costuming. And that blows my mind. But you have to think about all of that when you're writing a screenplay.
Yeah.
You have to. You cannot give a cinematographer or someone in photography direction on where they should shoot something.
Yeah.
You give them an idea of it, but you can't tell them this is where you're not the director. You're not the head of photography. You're not that person. So you got to write it in the way you want it to be translated. And to be able to do that with screenplays and then be able to take that and translate it into writing longer prose and other prose, short stories, long stories, / fiction, really helps. It really kind of lets you dive into that, but be conscious of your point of view and be conscious of how you're describing things and how your character's speaking versus how you speak.
I love all that. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I agree with you. And yeah, and you have to, and the vagueness of it is very interesting because you have to allow for every part of the process to do its own thing and have its own creative spin on it.
Right.
Because even if you were to direct them, they would ignore that and just do their thing anyway. So
Right.
it would,
Right.
So you have to be conscious of that if you're writing something that you want somebody to make and sell, right? So,
right. I mean, and we could talk about compromise, but at the same time, we want to be able to translate what we want to get out to them, so then they can,
right,
you
yeah.
know,
So they see what you see.
Right.
Yeah, I love
Yeah,
that.
I mean, you got to. There's no way you can tell them that this is how you want it to be done. You won't have a job.
Yeah, yeah. You'll never sell it anyway.
You won't. No, you won't.
So, I mean, that's really cool that turned out to be an exercise that you kind of are. So you're enjoying that process, I assume.
I am. I've set it down to finish a cosmic horror short story that I
Uh-huh.
submitted recently, but I'm going to go back to it, and I've been working on poetry as well because that's another form of writing that you the box that you are in when you're doing other prose, it's not there. You can play with language a lot more there. So figuring that out just helps. I'm trying to build armor, right? Like tools for the
Sure,
toolbox, right?
sure.
Tools for the toolbox. So like even learning things like romance and how that works and how people who are really good at writing it write it, because there's romance in science fiction and in horror and in all other types of media. And if you can do it right and do the action right, then you got something.
I'm curious from your perspective because I've had this conversation a lot this year on this show about your voice. Are you finding your voice is pretty prominent no matter how you whatever medium you're working in, whether it is writing a song, writing a poem, writing horror versus writing fantasy versus writing screenplays? Are you finding that you are establishing a voice that you kind of resonate that is yours? Or are you still kind of looking for
That's
that?
a that is a interesting question because I can't answer it. Right, the only people that can answer it are the people that are reading what I'm writing.
Yeah,
If they say, "Well, I've read this story and this story and this story," and you have a distinct voice, it's not really for me to say. They can say that even the style. I'm trying to make sure that the style of each thing in the writing has, I guess my signature to it.
uh-huh.
But it's not really for me to say that. I don't think I have discovered my voice, but other people have told me that I do have a voice. And so that's cool. I'm cool with that. Maybe one day I'll meet that voice that I have and understand it, so then I can maybe change it up a little bit. But as long as people are happy reading what I put out and they see what I'm trying to do with what I'm writing, then it's a success for me.
Take me through the moment that is Dark Spores the first thing that came out for you this time around? Is that the first thing?
Yes, that's the first thing that came out this year. Yes, Dark Sports was. Yes.
So take me through the process of your mindset in when I've worked with Rachel. Rachel's amazing to work with.
Yes.
But when you submitted it to when you got accepted to seeing it out there in the world, what was that carousel of feelings for you in that respect? How did that mountain kind of climb up for you? I'm curious how you felt about all that, because you probably have a unique perspective in that, being that a lot of us are so jaded about we've put stuff out there, or we did it on our own and we didn't, so there's a lot of times when we kind of take that for granted. So I'm kind of curious from your perspective, the carousel of emotions you went through with that.
I was excited for the challenge to write something that was horror.
Yeah.
Because while the story I wrote for Space Funk, which got accepted before this for Dark Spores, that had horror elements, but I kind of wanted to dive into the genre. I came up with 3 different stories, and one of them I liked a lot, and the other 2 just got put in a box. And then when I was submitted, I was nervous as hell. Like everyone is when they submit something that they have worked on. I am really lucky to be able to have people in my life that will read this and tell me if it sucks or if it's good or if it's where I've made mistakes. And I am thankful for each and every one of them. I really appreciate y'all very much. Specifically my mentor Paige, who really, really puts me in the mindset to actually be able to kind of do what I do. Is a good teacher, a phenomenal teacher. But I was nervous, and then I found out that it got accepted, and then I was excited for people to read it, because I wanted to see what their perspective is throughout the whole entire process. It's an exciting thing. It's something that you chase, right?
Yeah.
It's an exciting thing to have something out there for somebody to read it, or just to be able to affect somebody's life in a positive way. Just kind of let them escape for a little bit from the world and read a story that you wrote. That's cool. That's a cool feeling. I mean, it's not, it's cool that somebody can read that. It's just really cool. It's exciting. I want to get better than that. I want to get a lot better than that. I want to be able to do more in different types of spaces and have as much fun as I possibly can doing it, and just share fun, cool stuff with people. That's like that carousel of emotions is fun. It's exciting. I get excited when someone sends me a personal rejection letter.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, that's something I can learn. Okay, that's I made that mistake. Okay, I need to work on this and that, and I try to improve each and every time. That's all you can really do.
Yeah, it's almost, you almost clamor for the 3-star reviews, just because those are usually the ones that are the most thoughtful. They're the ones that take the time to pick out the things they like and don't like, and kind of that helps you more than, oh, I loved it, or oh, it sucked, right?
Speaking of reviews, I really enjoyed your reviews on Dark Spores. When I read the stories, it's just like, well, you're just right on. You're spot on. You picked some of the favorites that I have. You were spot on with your reviews. Ain't nobody ever seen these reviews. You go see them. They're really good reviews. Joe,
thanks, brother.
Write a damn review.
The interesting thing about the story that I read for Dark Spores, and I haven't read Space Funk yet, but it's there for me to read. So I'm real excited to read that as well. But the one thing that I really enjoyed about your story, and I'm kind of curious if that's kind of the perspective that you like to come from, is the internalization of do you like the internal torment? Is that kind of your wheelhouse, or do you feel like it was just specifically for that story that you found that was the best thing that worked?
Internal Torment is my old friend. We are friends. We know each other very, very well. And so, yeah, I mean, bingo again. I'm glad that you were able to actually get that. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, 100%. That and that kind of twisted excitement that you get from it.
Yeah.
That especially if your mind is innocent. You know what I mean? If
Yeah.
you don't understand what you're doing is what you're doing.
Yeah.
If you don't understand it, I think it becomes even more terrifying.
I would agree. Yeah.
Alien lands down and says, and we say hello, and it shoots the meat sacks because it doesn't know us. It's like us picking apples from a tree.
Yeah.
That's some terrifying shit. Look, that's horrifying. But yeah, yes, internalization and that torment and that dread from it. And if you process that through a guilt-free consciousness, almost like a baby, intelligent baby, it knows nothing of the world.
Right.
Yes,
I love that. You know, you have quite an array of fandom too that you gravitate towards. Have you? What has that done for you in terms of your writing process? Have you? I'm sure you've studied how some of your favorite stuff has been made, and how you probably have gone a little bit further than the average fan in terms of, you know, because I just know you, and I think that's probably where I would go, and you and I are very similar in that respect. So I'm curious if what that's done for you in your writing process. Have you found that it's been helpful to kind of delve into how some of your favorite stuff has been made?
yeah, that's another very interesting question. Yeah, even like some of the things that I might disagree with
Yeah,
in terms of media that I might not like, or that might not have appealed to me at one point, gain some
I
sort of
can
appeal
totally relate to all of them. Yeah,
because when we look at it from a fan's perspective, it's like, oh, okay, this was good and this is bad, and then we have very valid reasons why. But then we learn how to write and learn what it means to screenwrite and how much time they put into it and how much time they don't put into it. And
right.
all of those things, all those elements, how somebody can write something really great, then the next movie write something really bad, how it all works, how it's all cut apart and chopped up and sewn back together. You start to think differently about the things that you read and you've watched and you've consumed.
Yeah,
Um, Plot stuff, all of it. You're like, this is a bad plot. But then when you're a writer, you're like, oh, COVID-19 shut down the whole entire set. They had to do some stuff, a bunch of rewrites from home. People were sick. That's why that was not good.
yeah,
That's why a lot of things got lost in translation. All of our media usually affects us. Like I will put on an album and listen to whatever music I'm going to listen to that day, and it might change the story that I'm writing a little bit because of the mood of the music. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Or I might watch really bad movies just so I can go and see if there's a script for them and read that script, see how that script played out. Maybe it didn't play out like, or the law scripts or all of that other stuff. Yeah, we dig into it a little bit more than normal,
yeah,
but it's because we're thinking about it in two or three different ways. You know what I mean? And especially now that you have an eye for lens and you write, and so those things change how you look at a movie forever, and it will. And you also look at the things that influence you and start to see that influence in your work
yeah,
on a regular basis, like little things here and there from comics and from manga and from anime and stuff like that, and from music. God, music influences a lot. I can write playlists. That's a good idea. I can write playlists for the stories that I have out right now, and even the poem. I know
yeah.
exactly what song I was listening to when I wrote that poem. So yeah, I mean, music drives a lot more of my stories than movies or comics even.
Do you
in
have
that
it
comparison.
on while you're writing, or is it something you have to listen to and then write?
Oh no, I have it on when I'm writing. I can't I can't function properly without having some sort of music at some point. If people see me around Jordan Con, I have my headphones in, you can stop me. I'm usually just focusing. It's all good. You can stop me and say what's up. You're not interrupting me. But yeah, I gotta have some kind of music at any given time. And it really does affect how my stories play out. It really does. A whole album can affect how my stories play out. 100%.
You mentioned anime because anime has a different format than anything else that anybody else would write.
Right.
It's a 5-act structure versus a 3-act structure.
Right.
There's there's certain boundaries that you cross in anime because if you cross them, it allows the anime fan to kind of relate to certain things and things of that nature, right?
Right.
Fashion is very important in anime too.
Big time.
Stuff like that. So when you're writing these internal stories, that doesn't lend itself to much of anime's aspect of it. But are you thinking about the external shell when you're writing the internal stories like an anime might?
In certain situations, in certain, let's say, things that really grab me from anime, especially is really well done, are character arcs. How a character progresses, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is usually the thing I take away from anime when it's written well.
Yeah.
When how a character progresses is written really well. Tanjiro from Demon Slayer, that's a really good character arc. I really like how that character arc goes.
Nice.
There's many others there's many others where the character arcs, even if they're secondary characters, they really play out well. My Hero Academia has very good character arcs. And then again, here's that thing where you're a writer, you can tell that this person really likes Star Wars, or they're a fan of that type of action stuff, because it's like, and comics, because there it is, right there, you know. But character arcs is what I usually take out of there. Hunter x Hunter is like the way that characters progress in Hunter x Hunter, specifically Killua, and some of those characters really, really just progress very, very well. The structure and the acts and how, and there's other anime that are really different than that kind of shoujin. It's really different. Like Paranoia Agent. It's got a different vibe to it, and then there's a lot of Jujutsu Kaisen. I love that anime. Again, character arcs really, really good in those. They really, I take a lot of character arc and how characters grow when it's written well in anime.
Did he freeze or did I? Rob, you're frozen, just so you know, if you can hear me. The screen went nice and big when I was blowing my nose. Thank you. Hopefully he'll run back in real quick. But yeah, there he is. Okay, cool.
I have no idea what happened either. Sorry.
That's okay. No worries. It happens. It's live.
Character arcs are what I usually pull from anime specifically when it's written really well. The structures, not so much. Fashion, maybe in the future.
Yeah.
But yeah. And like I said, there's a couple of stories that really grab you with the character, how the characters are well written. But
Does it
again,
have
that's
to be
cool.
a drastic arc, or do you find the ones that are more subtle to be more interesting?
Again, both if they're written well. If it's a
Okay.
drastic, I mean, and again, pacing is
Because
important there
there
too.
are certain animes where the arc goes from him being a hero to him being the devil, right? So
Right, right. Oh yeah, I mean, if anyone hasn't watched Solo Leveling, we're
yeah,
getting like in that territory, which is really
yeah,
really good, by the way. Yeah, that traditionally I like when the character arc is slower.
uh-huh.
If there's an explosion of power, it's usually that's kind of thrown in there. It kind of feels thrown in. Oh, let's just give him a little bit of this because he needed to have it at this moment. Let's
Yeah,
give him the tools that he needs to make the thing happen to the. But I mean, it's like the death of John Wick's dog. Like this was the thing that's going to set it off,
yeah,
or is it? Was it just that he was looking for a reason,
yeah.
or what was it?
Yeah, and there's those happy coincidences like that is a
Yeah,
great example of a happy coincidence, right?
right.
Where the son of the Russian mafia just happened to steal his car, right?
It's happened to steal
Right,
his star, right?
right. You know, it's just stupid shit like that makes so much sense. You know,
I
but
knew
yeah,
what I saw John Wick for the first time recently. I knew what it was when I saw it.
yeah, and it's good for what it is. And then
Right,
don't get me wrong,
right.
the first one especially is very interesting,
Yes,
but yeah, I mean, it's just that there's just there's almost it's not formulaic. I don't want to say formulaic because John Wick divides that convention, but
right.
there is a convention to it that kind of you just kind of go with the rhythm of it, right? There's a
Right,
rhythm to that makes it make sense.
right,
You know,
right.
I think anime is very fortuitous and guilty of both of those aspects. You
Yeah,
know, where
yes,
it could be formulaic to the idea of anime, or it could be so subversive that it's so interesting that it's an anime, right?
right,
So,
right.
the other thing about anime that's interesting, and I'm curious if this is something you might adopt later on. You haven't had too many stories that I've read personally of where you've had multiple characters or an arc from beginning to end, and I'm sure you've been working on stuff like that before. But something that's very interesting about anime is that the introduction of characters throughout that all have a connection to both the protagonist and the
Right,
antagonist, right?
right.
That's an interesting thing about anime that I've always found fascinating. Is it's not just a character you meet along the way. It's not a hero's journey. This person has touched both lives, and
Right,
it's very interesting that they know both of them, and all of a sudden they just got introduced here, and it changes the whole dynamic of everything. You
right,
know,
right.
do you like that, or is that something you would play with in the future?
It's something I'll play with in the future because I think it's good. It's like I said, it is it's a good reason for great character development.
Yeah,
It's really a good reason for like when you have someone that's walk both sides of Hellboy.
yeah, that's a
Hellboy.
good one. That's a
It's
good
just
example.
having touched both sides,
Uh-huh.
knowing both sides really makes for really good character arc.
John
And really,
Constantine.
oh,
That is
Constantine. Oh,
yeah, yeah,
Swamp Thing.
yeah.
I mean, Swamp Thing will would want to does want to regularly swallow the world whole and make it all green again, but there has to be a balance. There has to be a balance. Yeah.
Are you interested? I mean, I know you and I have had a conversation actually about how fed up we are with the DC and the Marvel universes at this point. But do you have an interest in any of that aspect of storytelling, or are you kind of like, you know what, I'm gonna stick to my end of the swimming pool, and they can have that right now.
Uh, I like the challenge.
Yeah.
I like the challenge. So if someone threw a character that was more obscure
Uh huh.
to me, I would think it was cool. But if you were just like, hey, we want you to try to write or co-write Werewolf by Night or Swamp Thing or some sort of I want to introduce my style of horror to Swamp Thing.
Uh huh.
I would love to do that. That would be cool to do. But that's just like schoolboy dreams.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? That's I mean I don't own Swamp Thing. that's just schoolboy dreams. But I would love to write in that space and be able to kind of show what I can do.
Is there one in particular? You keep mentioning Swamp Thing. Is that the one in particular that you're really fond of, or is there one that you really like the way they're writing it right now?
So let's just be clear. Anything that's mystical, magical, or horror related.
Oh,
Doctor Strange, um, uh, like it would be an absolute dream to write Doctor Doom.
uh-huh.
That would be icing on all kinds of cakes.
That's awesome.
And being able to create a character for one of those particular universes. People are like, you want to write Batman because they know I like Batman, but I don't want to write Batman. I think Sean Murphy and all of them did Batman really good, and I love Jace Fox, the new Batman. That's cool. Um, but yeah, there's characters specifically I want to write, and most of those are magical characters. What they did with Storm right now, I really like. Storm would be one of those characters that would be a great to write, and Bishop, that's another character. May not be magical, but I like to write a lot of brown characters. A lot of brown characters, maybe a couple of green ones, and any of the magic or mystic stuff. I would like to do that. I think they're supposed to be making like a Strange Academy
Uh-huh.
live action or something like that. That'd be
The
cool.
one, I,
To
the one I'm excited, the one I'm excited about is I heard that they're doing Toxic Avenger with Peter Dinklage.
I knew that was coming. I knew that Peter Dinklage was assigned
That's
like
fucking
to it.
amazing.
I did not know Peter Dinklage was playing fucking Toxic.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I'm posting about this, and I'm just like, I'm expecting people, and I'm pretty sure people have already said, this is not like it used to be, or it's not like the masterpiece that they released, the masterpiece. It was, yeah, we're yeah, okay. All right. I'm gonna enjoy Peter Dinklage as Toxic. It's probably gonna be funny and reminiscent of the things from back in the day. It's gonna be great.
Yeah,
It's probably gonna
I think Roger Corman would have been happy to have done a movie like that. So
I mean, all day, all day. I just want them to remake Darkman.
nice. I you mentioned all the brown characters. How much for you are you thinking about POC writing and how important is that for you? Is that the important thing, is to represent who you are in the world for as far as what you write?
It is an important thing. The important thing is to normalize all of my characters, right? So I want all of my black characters to be who they are, and that to be perfectly fine. Of course, I know that the world does not afford me that privilege to do
Right.
that, but it is one of the important things to make sure that my characters have an audience and that the audience is reachable. Superman has an audience, a very large audience. So does Batman.
Yeah.
And I think that there are other characters I would like to write that have audiences that may not look like those two characters. I mean, it's that simple. It's like I got to see those characters. I didn't get to see a lot of Black Panther runs when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I got to see those characters, and I think that if I do, when I do write a character, I don't think of that character as looking like anything else other than a brown skinned person, or I might have white characters in my story, but you've read the story in Dark Spores, you know what the character looks like there.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? It's just like it's not. It is it's always in the forefront of my mind.
Yeah.
Because when you're writing stories, conflict matters. It drives story, and when you've had a lot of conflicts, and you will pull from what you've dealt with in your life. So I go to pulling. It comes out. It happens that way, and it's nothing that I'm trying to avoid, and it's nothing that I'm trying to do on purpose. But I do think it's important that my characters look, are represented properly.
Well, I also think that personalizing something is very, very important to the author who's writing it, because while we would never, yes, I've written characters that are nothing like anything I would ever be or who I am, but but I personalize the story in other ways where I put them in settings that I know of, or things of that nature. And
Right.
so, and it could be very subtle. It could only be the inside joke for the people who know it, right?
Right. Right.
Or things like that. But I do think that becomes part of a signature of a mature writer, is to
Right.
being able to mix that in there and put that in there, and you know there is something to be said for, we need stories told from perspectives that are not normally told from, because
100%.
it becomes just the same old, and we get so bored with what we're trying to watch and read. And I think they're so fascinating. And I also think, like the one thing you talk about learning from everything that you're doing. I think a lot of people who aren't from those perspectives can learn a lot by reading those perspectives, and maybe
Absolutely.
develop an empathy or a sympathy that maybe they didn't have before, that would be helpful to the universe.
Absolutely. 100%. When you read Space Funk, I want to hear what you think.
Yeah, I'm
I,
very
I,
excited to read it.
I want to hear what you think about my story and about the other stories in there too. 'Cause I'm halfway through it, and man, it is crazy.
I mean, I know a lot of the authors in it, and I adore a lot of the authors in
I
it.
am
So
fans. I am fans of some of the people that I'm in this book with. I'm sorry,
yeah,
I am fans of all the people in this book. Some of them I haven't read yet until I read this,
yeah,
and I am like, these people are incredible writers.
yeah.
All of them are incredible writers, and it was important to be in that book. That was the first story I ever sold, was in that book.
That's awesome.
I was stoked,
Yeah,
just stoked. It was like the best thing. It's still like one of the highlights of my life is getting in that book, because it is an amazing opportunity to have. Thank you to Milton and Envy Media for even giving me an opportunity and a chance. It's something that really has helped boost my confidence in to being a writer. It really did help. And a lot of people in that book, they know who they are, also help, and were there when I needed to understand a lot of things.
mhm.
And were to encourage to write. Um, I can't sit and say that it's not. Well, there's always a fear of, a lot of people think that they're going to get pigeonholed into a certain
Yeah,
group or a certain
yeah,
character or a certain shelf space on the book shelf,
yeah,
because their character is brown or
yeah,
person of color or from the LGBTQ plus community,
yeah,
or and you get put on a space in the shelf that's not in any other spaces. When
yeah.
you've written a sci-fi story, or you've written a story, you want to be on the shelf with the sci-fi stories
Right.
next to
Yeah,
everybody else. And it's this thing where there's this balance that has to happen, where we do have to recognize everyone, who, especially when they're pulling out really good work, you got to recognize them. You got to, if you're a science fiction fan, you need to be reading science fiction of all different types,
yeah,
trying to
for sure.
expand your mind on where, the trends are going to go next for science fiction, because you're going to see a lot of these things in films. I mean, you're going to see stuff like Children of Blood and Bone on film.
Yeah,
That's happening like now.
yeah.
You're going to see that type of fantasy everywhere, and that type of science fiction everywhere. And so you're going to have to get on board and kind of pay attention to what's happening, because there's some really, really good, fun, cool stuff out there. And Afrofuturism stuff blew my mind. Like, being able to read that from that perspective blew my mind when I first discovered Afrofuturism. Just blew my mind. It's just like, well, I mean, everybody can do it. Everybody's doing it. And imagine the kids that are able to read that kind of stuff now, that wasn't able to read that kind of stuff a while back.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's a lot of really good authors out there.
yeah. When you walk around these conventions, and I've seen you're a very thoughtful person. You talk to a lot of people. You've become kind of the social ambassador in a lot of respects to whenever I'm around. You're talking to somebody and having a very deep and meaningful conversation with that person, or you're asking them questions to learn stuff from them. I'm curious, in those conversations, has there been a conversation about how it's either getting better or worse out there in terms of being represented and being seen?
Oh yeah, sometimes yeah. Um, and again, that's like the problem with the bookshelf, right? Like I want to be known as a good black writer,
Right.
but I want my good black books in the space where like in the other
Wherever
places.
your other book
Yeah,
is.
where every other book is, right? In
Yeah.
the library, right? They said, and not have to worry about. And, and at this point, it's I can't even blame a lot of people. At
Yeah.
this point, it's like our authority, our supposed authority, is like telling people to not like this
Yeah.
because it says this about them.
Yeah.
It's just like don't understand. Your strings are being pulled. You're being fooled. Stop not wanting to read and the cool shit and eat the cool shit and hang out with the cool people because
Right.
there's a lot of different looking types, colors, emotions, spectrums of different people out there that are really, really cool that can really show you some cool stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's it's a tough. Those conversations happen sometimes. They don't happen as often because usually we're nerding out about stuff. It doesn't usually really come up, but sometimes they do come up.
Yeah.
And what really shocks and surprises me sometimes is the questions that I get. They're not the usual questions that you get,
Yeah.
and the responses from people around. That's important
Mm.
because I expect to get pushback from some things. Everybody does,
Yeah.
but you don't. I don't see a lot of that. I don't see people pushing back. They'll like jump in and chime in and agree, and it's usually genuine because you can tell when it's not. You can tell when it's not genuine.
Yeah.
I mean, straight up, you can tell when it's not genuine. It's usually very genuine. So that it creates, I think it creates a space where people can talk more freely about stuff like this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
and put themselves in check if they know, if they need to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think there's a lot of that. I think there's a lot, and it's not necessarily a bad thing to have that happen.
No,
I think
no.
we're all learning sponges at this point, and I've always contended that I'm a sponge until I'm a rock, and when I become a rock, that means I'm dead.
Right.
So
Yeah.
so I continue to learn so much, and I think a lot of that too, which is something that I find fascinating with you, that you do a lot of, because I've been in conversations with you, I've been around you when you've had these deep conversations, and it's something that I think is missing from those conversations is listening, and I think you do that very well, and I think that's something that also you learn from doing these conversations is that if you let somebody talk and you listen, you'll pick something up. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
100%.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's what it's about. It's about learning as much as I can from that person.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to be really real with you, it kind of stems from like sometimes having a trauma response. Because
Yeah.
if you're not listening to what's going on around you, you can be put in a bad situation.
Yeah. No, that makes a
So
lot of sense.
for the most part, being able to listen to somebody and learning from them, you learn good things about them, but you sometimes can also learn bad things about them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No, I
sometimes
hear
they
it.
go right over your damn head, and you don't realize that you've been tricked by somebody.
Mm.
But it's I mean it's like that's what listening. That's what listening for me is having to understand who I'm talking to. I need to understand who I'm talking to before I continue to go on, or I need to understand what this person is saying to me, so then I can either give them a right answer or tell them I don't know.
Where are you in this point in your career right now? Are you feel like you're on a good trajectory? Do you want to ramp it up? Do you want to, uh, you know, are you looking to put more stuff out there right now? Are you trying to find the right thing to put out there? Where are you right now in your writing career?
So in my most recent submission was to Cosmic Horror Monthly, and I wrote something that I think is some of the best work that I've written so far. That's because I really enjoy it. I'm a fan of it. What I wrote, I'm a fan of everything that I've written, but I really, really something just different. I get to kind of explore other things that I'm about in that story. And it really kind of goes after the mythos of H.P. Lovecraft. So, and it goes after the mythos of inclusion into kind of the modern times.
Mm-hmm.
So it plays with time. As far as like my career, I don't even know if to call it a career.
Yeah, well, you're just getting started though. You're
Right.
The treadmill is building, right? So
So I always want to put out more work because
yeah.
I like writing and I want people to read it.
Are you a goal oriented person? Do you set goals for yourself?
I don't really set goals for myself. The only goal that I really have for myself is to not stop learning. That's the only real goal that I have for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that creates steps for me to where if I feel like I'm better at something else, like if I feel like I'm better at writing this particular type of thing than that particular type of thing, I can put the other thing on the back burner and focus more on this, thing. And then that would also go into well, what kind of book festivals do I need to go to? What kind of cons do I need to go to? Do I need to read more of this particular type of media? Do I need to consume more of this particular type of book to get into the mind space of that? Who do I need to ask those questions? Where do they come from? How do I get into those spaces to learn about those things? And then I learn that, and then I put the little brick on top of that, and then I climb the next brick, and then I learn more, and then climb the next brick. So it's step by step for me. I don't see like a long-term. I know what I want to do. I want to get a job in a writing room, writing something for some company, rather it be like, writing with a group for Netflix or writing with a group for DC or Marvel or Image Comics or anybody. I would like to do that. That would be really cool. But I have to learn not only the industry part of that, which is I know this much about, but I need to learn the writing, which I also know about that much about. So I in terms of like where I am sitting at, I am getting better at what I'm doing. I'm confident that I'm getting better at what I'm doing. I have had a lot of help from a lot of really talented people to help put me in a mind frame and teach me, about prose. And I just want to keep improving. And if that leads me to places where I can get jobs to do this, that would be cool because I would love to write for a living. That would be awesome. But I need to. I know there's a lot more I got to learn.
Right during the day and play, get on the stage at night and play a little bit, right?
No. Listen, my knees just said no. Both of them were like, nah, dude, no way. My back's like, what? No.
So you would just be a studio musician? You would never go back to going back on the road?
On stage? No, I would never. Oh, I can't say never. I just say just right now it ain't the outcome ain't looking too good. So
I mean, it's funny because you're jumping into the industry at a time when it is very prominent to jump into, especially for indies. We're making headway. We're starting to make up the ground that gets noticed, right? And I know, and I know a lot of people are still not happy with that ground because it is a slow burn, and it is not the burn that is getting you the 12-figure salary, the 6-figure salary and stuff like that, but there are people who are sustaining livings doing this, right? And it's a hustle, it's a grind to do it, but it is out there, it is possible. Music business, I'm wondering, when you got out of the music business, was it burning or was it kind of burning out at that point?
So in terms of like music for musicians, that's always going to be popping, right?
Yeah,
So like musicians are always going to want to play music. They still do. They still will want to forever. Venues started to change. Where I was living at, where I'm living at now, and where I would go to play shows locally, the city started to change.
yeah,
So like, I mean, one of the last buildings that I played a show at got demolished for student housing. So that when you want to be like a musician to go out and play things, you want to go and play at your favorite venues and other
yeah,
venues where you like the people and the people are cool. And but that is starting to change, and there's a couple of places that people go and play now too. And shout out to all the musicians in Tallahassee. Shout out to Stronghold. I love that band for life. I will always love that band and everybody that's in that band. And all of those really talented, wonderful musicians are starting to try to figure out other things and about what they want to do in terms of
uh-huh.
like playing studio, doing more shows out. Because doing more shows out, changed with the landscape, and then the pandemic hit, and
Yeah,
that changed things even more.
yeah,
I want to just make music. That's
yeah,
what, if I was in a situation where I was singing, I want to just make music, studio, um, maybe do a show or two out,
yeah.
but that's really it. Studio stuff is what I like to do.
Maybe do a festival.
That
You
would
know?
be that'd be really cool. my band, the band that I was in, we probably would be up for something like that. But
Yeah,
I I don't know.
because that's to be honest with you, I don't even. It's rare that I go to a concert where
Right,
the band has gone from Atlanta to Brooklyn to Toronto to San Francisco, right?
right,
It's rare I go on a tour concert. I I think, and I'll pay the extra $200 to see 60 more bands and
right,
do the festival thing for 4 days
right,
because
right, right,
it just I get more experience from it. And even in that aspect of it, where you have these great bands, where you have bands that would headline a club nearby and play for 3 hours,
right,
them playing for 30 minutes kind of is more of a thrilling aspect of it because they're playing the stuff you want them to play for
right,
those 30
right,
minutes if they're
right,
if you're going to do it good,
right.
right? And so eh, I've kind of gravitated toward that. You know, that's all I'm going to spend my money on now is festivals. I mean, I might go to a local show here or there if I really have never seen the band or I'd love to
Right,
see them.
right.
But yeah, it's tough because the concerts today are so expensive, right? And if you're not getting your bang for your buck, I think it's ridiculous to go to these things.
The last show I went to was In Flames, Meshuggah, and Torch.
See, and that's a
Yeah.
three-headed monster right there. So
It was a good show. It was a
uh,
good show. Me and my brother Bobby went. It was a really good show. We had a
yeah,
really good time.
I'm
Before that,
guessing you probably paid $75 for those tickets.
$75.
Yeah,
75 bones.
yeah,
We went and saw Culture Luna in Atlanta as well. 75 bones.
yeah, yeah. I mean, Pearl Jam's playing the week that we're there at Jordan Con. They're playing 3 days after Jordan Con. Those tickets were like $300 for the fucking bleachers.
$300.
Yeah, it's like I'm not going to spend $300. I don't. I know people
Wow.
who will because they're diehard Pearl Jam fans, but I'm not a diehard fan. I just never seen them. I'd love to see them, but I'm not going to spend $300 to do that. That's ridiculous. You know.
I do know. I do know. I do know. I am very well. No, 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 no. I would rather spend $20 to see a local band,
Yeah,
a local lineup.
yeah, and that's kind of faded away. That idea too. It's kind of stinks because I think that's where independent bands really, and that's a product of COVID in a lot of respects. A lot of
Yep.
those a lot of those little theaters died because of
Mhm.
that because they couldn't sustain it. But But yeah, that's the part of the industry I think I miss the most right now is those little local shows. That show on Wednesday that only you and your 6 friends know about that's
Right.
playing 3 hours away, and you
Right.
go drive there to go see it, and it's $10 at the door. You
Right.
know?
And it's like Mastodon before they got big.
Right? Yeah, it was like when I was in the Marines. We somebody just said on a Thursday night, "Hey, let's drive down to Myrtle Beach." Why drive to Myrtle Beach for anything? Because there's a band that where I'm told we really need to heal, and it turned out to be Korn. You paid $15 to go into a venue, this little tiny club that couldn't be bigger than a room, a bedroom, and it was Korn, and it was fucking amazing.
Nice.
That just doesn't happen anymore, right? So
Right.
anyway, all right, my friend. Well, this has been such an awesome conversation. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate it. Love having you here. Tell everybody where they can find your stuff at and where they can learn more about what you're doing so that we can get more eyeballs on what you're doing.
Well, you can catch me on most of the social medias at Rob Grimoire. All of those social medias, I have links to all of my works. I am on the Face page. I am on the Instagram. I am on the Blue Sky and the TikTok, all in the same name, Rob Grimoire. And I look forward to meeting you.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Well, that's our show. We have one more 21 grams left before the season's over. So come and join us for that next Monday. And while you're here, subscribe, do all the wonderful things that you do. And jump back onto the Go Indie Now page because right now, as we're talking, Hit the Dice is happening, which is our live role-playing game. And they're playing the Triangle Agency. So that should be a lot of fun. And go check that out. And we'll see you again very soon. Remember, it's always time to go indie now. Bye, everybody.